Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mind, Money, Soul. And today, in this episode, prepare yourself because I'm probably going to call you out a little bit. I'm sorry. If you are spending mindlessly, you are wasting your life. Ouch. Ouchie mama. That's a killer to hear. But let me explain in more detail why I feel this way. Now, when you go to work, whether that is a 9 to 5 or you run your own business or you're self-employed, you are essentially swapping your time for money. And what we do know is that time is our most valuable asset. Like, seriously. Why? Because it's a finite resource. So we only have so much time. We only have so much time in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, in a life. And unlike money, when you've spent time, you can't gain any more of it back. Like, you can't get back more time. No matter how rich you are, you can't buy yourself more time. I mean, that in itself is a whole another argument, right? But in general, time is a finite resource. And there's a guy called Jim Rohn, and he said, Tim, time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time. And basically, if you are going to work, and you're swapping your time for money, and then you spend that money on shit, right, that doesn't add to your life, you are wasting your life. Because, well, especially if none of that money is going towards your future self for saving or for investing, and you just spend everything you get. Why? Because then you have to keep going back to work and you have no freedom when you want to quit. So it's both the element of, one, you're wasting your time, and two, you never then get to actually quit and just have your time as your own because you have to keep going back to work and swapping your time for money to make more money so that you can spend it again. So we end up in this cycle of like spending, working. And if you're giving up your 9 to 5, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every weekday, or if you're a business owner and you work all the time or whatever that looks like for you, and then that money is just being spent on things that are like not bringing you joy, not adding to your life, not adding to your health or anything like that, you're wasting your life. Ouch. It can be hard to hear. I had a conversation with a friend about this the other day because we were talking about the way in which you spend with it adding to your life versus it detracting from your life. Now, it's not about not spending on the little things, right? It's not about not spending on little things that bring you joy. It is more about having like consciousness and mindfulness and knowing that you are happy with how you are spending your money so that it is not a waste. It's essentially asking yourself, like, is this thing that I'm spending money on worth X amount of my time? And there's this thing when it comes to mindful spending where you can essentially be like, if you know what your hourly rate is for work, then you can work out, is this pair of jeans that I'm about to buy worth 3 hours of my time? Is this taxi that I'm about to get worth an hour of my time? Is it, you can question yourself in alignment with the amount of time you spend at work. Now, obviously, there's also the argument, like, if you love your job versus if you don't like your job, your argument of like, no, this isn't worth my time might be higher. Because you're like, absolutely not. Whereas if you love your job, you're like, yeah, I don't mind because I can go back and I can make that money. But it's just about being more conscious with it. And there's a guy called Henry David Thoreau, and he once said, wealth is the ability to fully experience life. So like, what does experiencing life to the fullest mean to you? A lot of people will be like, freedom is really important to me. But what does freedom mean to you? Like, to me, running my own business, obviously I still have to work to make money, right? But I get my time freedom in the way of I get to spend my morning how I want. So literally just yesterday, I had the journey from hell. I was coming home from Liverpool and what should have been about a 3-hour journey turned into a 7-hour journey because turned up to the train station and there was no trains going, and then I had to get a bus replacement, like a rail replacement bus, and nobody knew what was going on, and I was stood outside in the cold for an hour, and then it was another hour journey, and then the next train station my train was delayed, and then it was a 2-hour journey, and then I got back and I was just going to get a cab all the way home and there were no cabs, and then I had to, like, it was a nightmare, right? But this morning last night I went to bed at 9 p.m. and this morning I just didn't set an alarm. I just woke up when I woke up and I got like 11 hours sleep. And then I spent the morning like doing my morning bits, having a slow morning because I have my own time, because I run my own business. Now I still have to work, but time freedom is really important to me. But the more money from my business that I put aside towards savings and investments and building my own wealth, the more of my own time I will get back in the future because I will be able to work less. You see? So it's just about making these conscious choices. Now, what's really important is not only you run the risk of wasting your money, like spending on shit, but also spending money on things that are actually diminishing your health. This is a huge one. So I actually had an example that I want to give, right? I had a client that had a full-time job. She had debt to clear. She was struggling a little bit because she was basically just like really stressed. Because she was stressed, she was then smoking. So she was struggling to kick the habit of smoking because stress about money was like making her feel stressed, which habitually was then making her smoke more, right? So it's this big cycle. She would go to work, she'd have a lunch break, she'd go buy tobacco or, go buy a cigarette, have a cigarette, go back to work. The cycle repeats. And I said to her, you are literally going to work, spending your time for money, then spending that money on something diminishing your health and making you have to stay in a job for longer. Like, what is the point? And she was just like, poof. So the health thing is a real massive one. See how you might be enabling yourself in these situations. Now, I want to break down. I did some numbers, I did some stats, which I found absolutely fascinating. Okay, so listen to this. The average human spends roughly 79 years on Earth, which is about 692,000 hours. The average person spends 26 years sleeping, which is about 227,000 hours. So that's about a third of our life. And that's if we're getting like 8 hours of sleep a night. Now, if you started a job at 18 and you stayed working till 68, that is about 50 years of working. So if we base it on an average 40-hour work week, that's a total of 104,000 hours at work. Basically, that works out to be about 11 years of our life at work. So that's 15% of our time on Earth is spent working. Now, if you do overtime, or if you commute to your 9 to 5, or you run your own business, we know that it's probably more hours than 40 a week. So let's just say you end up doing a 60-hour work week, which would be like 50 years. That's about 17 years. So basically, if you are doing those many hours, you're basically spending about 22% of your life working. Okay. Now, obviously, this is back of a packet calculations because there's so many other things to take into consideration. But essentially, the average human could end up spending about a quarter of their life swapping time for money. A third of that is sleeping. Okay. So 30% of 22, about half of our life is sleeping and working. Okay, the others is all the other time. Now, obviously, we need to be eating, we need to be socializing, we need to be doing all those other things. But if you are spending a quarter of your life working, swapping your time for money, and then you go and spend that money in exchange on shit that potentially even lessens your life expectancy, smoking, convenience food, whatever else it is, just to make it through the day to work to make money, it doesn't add up, puns. What a waste. Now, I am not saying that you need to be number one health person or that you need to not spend on anything that is not like towards your health or like whatever. But I do think that being conscious of your health and being conscious of how you spend your money is really important, especially if you are swapping your time for work. Now, I just gave an example of how it shows up for one client, but I'm going to give you two other examples, okay? So, I had a client a little while ago who said she really valued her health, but she felt like she couldn't afford organic food or like to shop from the farmer's market, which is what she really wanted to do. So we went through our budget and we realised that she was spending about £200 a month on takeaways and fast food without realising, and it was coming down to convenience, just needing to like have dinner really quickly because she was working really hard. And she said she valued her health, but her money showed us that she wasn't, because she was still spending money on something that she did not value, okay? So when she realised this extra £200, if she didn't spend it getting takeaways, she could essentially put that £200 in that pot towards healthy food, changed her life, right? Because whilst, maybe she would spend more than £200 at the farmer's market to feed herself, that's £200 extra that she could have, that not only meant she wasn't spending on takeaways and diminishing her health, it was then actually going towards something that she valued and was adding to her health, which was giving her more energy, which was making her more productive, which was making her more money in her business, which meant she made more money for the farmer's market. You see how it works? I was like, girl, this is amazing. I absolutely loved working with that client. She was amazing. And it was a really big eye-opener for her. So that was really cool. And then another client, right? She was working in a job that she hated it. It was making her really miserable. And she just felt like she couldn't leave because she didn't have enough money, right? So she got herself into a cycle that whenever she felt shit about her job and she was down, she would end up buying random shit on ASOS and Amazon, you know, just like things that she thought were making her feel better because she was just scrolling. She wasn't saving, she wasn't investing, she felt like she didn't have enough to do that, and she was going back to a job that she hated to pay the bills and to feed her shopping habit, right? The shift realised when she realised it didn't have to be this way, okay? She could look for a new job and could even afford to take a bit of a pay cut to do something that she did enjoy, because if she stopped spending mindlessly on random shit to make herself feel better, she freed up like £350 to £400 a month from her spending, right? So the cycle that she was stuck in was not high paid, but like decent paid job, but job she hated. So to make herself feel better, she was spending loads of money. If she decided to leave her job, go to a new job that had a lower pay, but she was so much happier, she would find that she wouldn't spend as much money on shit and therefore wouldn't need as much money. Voila. So that was a really cool example as well. And that's why assessing your money situation and the way you spend your money in alignment with your values is so important. Now, if you want to have everything right and you're like, I just want to be able to spend money without worrying, I don't want to have to look at my budget and be like assessing all of this, totally, but you've got to work for it first. You don't just get to have everything. Sacrifices and compromises and hard work are required. And this is a bit of a bitch sometimes. Like I have had to have that realization with my business, right? When I quit my old job, I was in a really high paid salary for my age when I quit. And I've taken a massive pay cut to do something that I love. And there have been points where I'm like, wow, I still want to do all of these things. And I've maybe got myself in sticky situations because I've dug my heels in and I've wanted to live my life in the same way as well as running my business. I can't have it all right now. If I put in the hard work and the sacrifice and the compromise for my business now, in 5 years, I'm going to be laughing because I'm going to be making more money and it's just going to be, I'm going to be way better off, right? That is just how it is. Not that you have to run your own business, but you have to think about what is it that I want? What am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to do for the long-term effects? And how can I make myself feel good in the moment so I'm not spending on shit? You feel? So I just want to give a couple of tips on how to get around this. 1, go back through your spending. I say it all the time. I do. I say it all the time because it's an important one. Where are you spending most of your money? Can that money be better allocated somewhere else? Can that money be put towards saving and investing? Can it be put towards things that are actually improving your health? And can it go towards your values? Get really, really honest with yourself. Get honest with yourself, Hans. That was actually tip number 2. Be honest with yourself. Does how you're spending align with how you want your life to look? Are you happy with the choices that you're making? And are you happy swapping your time for money to then spend on the things that you're spending on? Be honest. And then get more connected with your values and your goals and what money can do for you. And then learn how to invest so that you can actually put your money towards something that feels meaningful instead of spending your money mindlessly on shit, basically. It really is your choice how you spend your disposable income. And I am just a big believer that we get into these habits sometimes and that's okay, but the more you can get in touch with yourself and in touch with your spending, you actually get to then live your life that you want, and you won't keep feeding yourself these lies such as, I can't go into a job I love because I'm in a high paid salary and I can't take a pay cut, or I can't improve my health because I can't afford it. Like, you can do the things that you actually want, but you've got to get honest with yourself. You feel? But thank you for being here. I hope you found this useful. Sorry if I've called you out a little bit. Send this to anybody who you think might need it, and I will see you next week. Mwah.